without love. Without love, when you're down on your luck, you can make it. Without love, we all fall hard. Without love, when you're down on your knees, you can make it. Without love, we all fall hard. You got me waiting, yeah, you got me waiting for it.
Cushing Matters starts now.
It's all good, man.
Here are the hosts of Cushing Matters, Joe Kennedy and Dr. Don Amon.
That's just the right
That is. Oh, yeah, it's 3 minutes. It's 3 minutes ahead.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Joe Kennedy here with Cushing Matters, along with the illustrious Don Amon over there, who just walked in from Tulsa, literally just a couple minutes ago. So,
Hold in.
so anyway, we're all a little bit late getting here tonight, but it's just part of it. It's summertime, and things are a bit disorganized in summertime because everybody's doing things, running around here and there,
Absolutely.
all that kind of stuff. So, Don, good to have you in studio tonight. I missed you last
Yeah, I
time
had
around.
was gone, and I forget where I was. I think I was on the road.
You must have been on or started your vacation, or
I was.
had that.
No, I know what we did. We went to Pennsylvania
Okay.
because my mom had fallen
Oh. okay.
and broke a couple of places in her pelvis.
Oh,
She didn't
ouch.
break her hip, and so I said, well, we were actually going to go anyway at that time, but I said, well, hey, let's really go, and then if mom comes home, if they send her home, because insurance companies don't want to keep you in the
hospital.
in the rehab, but it was more rehab than
Oh,
anything else.
Until the money runs out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so they said that
Alright.
she was okay, so they actually brought her home while we were there, so we got to, help her walk with the walker
Right.
and things like that. And I called her the other day, and she's getting in and out of the car, so, I mean, she's coming along really, really well. So.
They're being a good son for your mom.
Yeah,
Helping out a little bit.
I went all the way back to PA to make sure she was okay, and they
Yeah.
were treating her okay.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Well, hey, this is the I don't know, second official installment, maybe third time we've done Cushing Matters, but we're still not we don't have it very polished yet. But anyway, you're seeing stuff behind the scene, and as we talk about this, I'm already looking here for Ricky Lofton, who's going to come on and talk to us here in just a minute, and we're hoping that everything works as it's supposed to.
Well, why wouldn't it?
Well, I mean, I can give you lots of reasons why it wouldn't, Don. That's for sure. But we'll get him here in just a second, and I gotta push the right button, and I'm not pushing any of the right buttons at the moment.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get there here in just a second. So thanks for joining us tonight. Cushing Matters. The concept of the show is to give you a little bit of background with the City Commission, what's going on with the City Commission. I wouldn't say it's an exciting agenda tonight, Don, necessarily. We're kind of back to the potbelly pig
That's right.
agenda, which was was a big issue in its own way. But we got I think the biggest thing on the agenda tonight is new signage.
Well, there you go. Most agendas aren't exciting. There's very few things that are exciting during a commission meeting. Very few.
Well, and
because like we said the first time, I believe on the very first show, the commission meeting is really a business meeting, and most of the decisions were made way ahead. Let me rephrase that, because the decisions are made on the night, but through the budget process and through all of that takes 3 or 4 months, and then by the time it gets to front of the commission. It's really just a
Right.
matter of saying, oh yeah, this is what we talked about, let's go, unless something drastically changes.
Right.
You know.
And I've got, well, I see John Hinkle now. We've got John. John, can you hear me at all? He can. You can hear me. I can't hear you.
can't
Can you
hear
make
you.
sure that you're unmuted? I'm not sure. This is always the trouble with Zoom. You never know. You never know what.
Never know what you're gonna get.
You can hear us okay, but we can't. Oh, let me look here. Let me look on my end, John, and just make sure. Go ahead and talk for me again. Yeah, if I turn it.
Hello?
There
There
he
he
is.
is.
Hey, there he is.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so that helps if I turn it on my end, John. It helps a whole lot. So. John, we've got you instead. I saw Ricky there. Well, maybe it was just you a minute ago, but Ricky was supposed to be on with us, but we've missed him. We've got you on. We'll have you come back here in a minute with the Cushing Matters Master Panel too. But you're here. We might as well talk to you. When I pull you up here, your name is going to be you're out over the Ricky Lofton, but we can't even see that on screen right now anyway, so that's no big deal. But John, it's good to have you on tonight, and thanks for participating with us in the Cushing Matters program. We appreciate that.
Not a problem, my privilege.
Well, and I know we've had a couple of misfires on trying to get everybody together. The rehearsal went really well, which always tells you what, Don?
Yeah, the show's never go.
Show's never going to go good.
Right.
Exactly. So that's exactly how it went after that. But anyway, so we're going to have, of course, Terry Brandon will be on here after a while too. We'll get him on here hopefully. And we had a little internet problem last month because of the storms, and that was a big deal. And John, what have you seen as far as the storm recovery process and the crews out working and all of that this last month, just kind of getting everything cleaned back up?
Oh, I thought they did an excellent job. It goes to show what's paid off is all that tree trimming that we've done throughout the years. So, I think that lessened the effect of the storm. It was still had a lot of people out of energy places, but the crews got it back together, and Cushing especially pretty quick, I thought.
Yeah, and I think we've learned even through the earthquake and through all of this other recovery we've seen at different times of natural disasters and that sort of thing. People kind of learned what to do, getting stuff out to the curb and how to get stuff chopped up, and got to have the trees had to be in certain lengths, I think it was, in order for them to get them hauled off. Is that right?
That's correct. And they did it really quick. Most of the citizens had their brush picked up and on the curb quickly.
Yeah, and some of it's been, and there's been so much of it. I don't know, Don, you've observed some of that.
Yeah,
There's
I
been
saw.
so
In
much
fact,
of
I
it.
saw some today coming in. Because I saw the other day on the either Facebook or somewhere they said that you would be able to go down and dump it yourself. I guess it's down by the airport, and I thought, ooh, I wonder if they're going to go around and pick stuff up, because over on Anna. On Anna Street,
Yeah,
because that's the way I have to get home because the corner's taken up. There's still some piles there, and I thought, man, I wonder if they're picking those up, or if they're not in the right size, or if those people need to haul it to where it needs to go. So.
Right. Well, I know there's been a lot of citizens hauling stuff, and a lot of it was even seen like some of the streets kind of blocked off in segments,
Right.
just through streets and that sort of thing, while they're picking up all this brush off the side of the road. We saw some of that the other day too. So
And then, of course, it doesn't help that these hurricane-like storms that all of a sudden we're getting show up about every 2 or 3 days.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah, John, you're not a meteorologist. What do you think about that? What do you think about those storms? Where are they coming from? What in the world is up with that?
I don't know. This must rain in July. It's just really odd.
Yeah, it is. That is. I had someone say right before the end of the school year. Did we talk about this?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Or did we? But we may have talked about it. At the end of the school year, he said he thinks that we're a month off. Like, he thinks the world, for some reason or somehow, the calendar, we're a month off. So remember, like in the last few years, June was we had a lot of heavy rain in June, and
It's all shifted.
and now it's shifted. And I said, oh yeah, that's true, because I was seeing mayflies in April and June bugs in May. That was my
So it
my
means
thing.
in September we'll be inundated with the crickets. That's what cricket season is what I always call it in downtown Cushing, because usually out here on our wall we have just a wall of crickets some years out there. So cricket season is on its way, maybe a month late though. So John, anything else going on in your world that you want to mention to us or tell us about that you've seen going on? Anything new on the refinery that you've heard?
No, I just I thought the president of that company did a really good job on the presentation that you shared with us. So it sounds like it's well thought out and they got solid plans. So it's just a matter now of time as how they work through that process.
Right, and that's going to be. I mean, you're in the safety business, so you understand a lot of that stuff. But it's a pretty complicated process, is it not, to start the permitting process and
Yeah.
what kind of things are ahead of them there that you can
Well,
know of?
the just getting the permits from the EPA and on the federal, and they have, like I said, they haven't issued a permit to build a refinery since the 70s. So I think their approach to it by having that 95% green emissions footprint is going to be a big deal. I think that's what they've been looking for, and the technology has finally come around to where they can do that. So it's pretty exciting for them to be able to do what they say, if they can do what they say they're going to do. But as we all know, the wheels, when it comes to bureaucracy, can oftentimes be slow and arduous. And so I think it's just going to take that time to go through all that process to get those permits in place.
Well, there certainly are potential pitfalls in that, even from purchasing the land to all sorts of stuff, to the EPA, all that kind of stuff. Don, what do you think about just the possibilities of the refinery coming, though? There's been a lot, I mean, it's been a mixed reaction. I mean, you get people here, I guess we would call it a little bit surprised, but shouldn't be surprised, should we?
No,
I mean,
not at all. I just think, and I agree with John, and I say this all the time about government, it's slow. I mean, you have to be patient. It's not, like I said, like the very first show we did, the announcement came out, the very first show that we did, the announcement came out that we were going to get the refinery, and I immediately got a text, and said, hey, when do you think that refinery's coming in? I'd like to be part of I'd like to put in a bid or whatever to be the drug tester. And I'm like, my gosh, they just made the announcement. I mean, it's not like it's coming in tomorrow. It might be 5 years down the road.
Yeah.
And I know at the school, I've had conversations with some people going, well, we're talking about 400 or 500, influx of kids. And I'm like, well, first off, they have to live here for those kids to come into our school.
Right.
So we need to really work on that first before we worry about jumping up to 5A and not having enough. Right now we're in a teacher shortage as it is.
Right.
It's hard to get someone to come into the classroom right now, and so if you add 500 kids across the board, you're going to need probably 8 to 10 new teachers. And I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't worry about it today, because we're not even close yet. So when it starts to become closer, then I think you can start worrying a little bit. But time is something that people just can't get because of the world we live in.
It's such an immediate, world.
Right.
They can't grasp that. Like I said the last time we were on, when I ran for city commission, my goal was to get a light at Harmony and Main.
Right.
And eventually, I guess we're going to get one.
Getting close.
That was, I was on the board for 6 years and I've been off for 2. That's 8 years.
Yeah.
And it's still not there. So it just takes time. And that's just something I think we struggle with.
You bring that up, and I'll ask both of you guys this too while we have some time here. What are those projects that we should be looking at? If the city's going to grow, let's just assume everything's going to go fine and it's going to come in, but what should the city be doing to prepare for that? If we're going to grow the school, if we're going to grow the city, how can that happen, and what are the first things we would want to look at? John, what do you think?
Well, one of the things is going to be housing. People can't come here and go to school. They can't do anything if they don't live here. So, and as we know, when we start talking about the salaries that the refinery will pay, we're in a dire shortage of houses in the, I consider to be $150,000 to $200,000 range, or medium income housing. So you just can't put up, there's enough infield for that. So that constitutes new neighborhoods. And then along with that, and as Don knows, you got to have, the city's got to have the infrastructure to support that. So you got to have the water sewer systems, the street systems, the power to go with it. So that it's going to be a challenge. And I think we've all seen towns like Broken Arrow and Owasso and other towns that blew up overnight, and the challenges they faced on trying to get the infrastructure to keep up with the pace of the growth. And so those are the things now I believe our city council and our folks in leadership roles are going to are thinking about, and probably are doing that. I'm sure they're doing that behind closed doors, thinking ahead and planning about how they're going to meet those needs.
Well, that's right, John. Hey, thank you for that answer. That's a great answer, and I think that's right, spot on, actually, for what Cushing needs to move on. Now, John, I got a behind-the-scenes question for you here real quick. So your passcode you put in, was there another passcode beyond the number that you needed to get on Zoom tonight?
Yeah, you gave there's the phone number, which was the code to get in, and then there was a passcode you gave us earlier.
Okay,
that's what
was.
Yep.
Gotcha. So, all right. I can see that let me just fix that real quick. So you're talking about housing there, John. Go ahead and tell us, streets and that sort of thing. Are we going to have to? We're still playing catch up on streets, though, are we not? As far as maintenance, and how are we going to justify adding a lot to that if we're having a hard time maintaining our budget? Is there going to be a gap here that we're going to have to overcome here in the meantime when we're growing like that before we really see revenue catch up with the expenditures?
A lot of that goes hand in hand with your investors that build the communities. Generally, the way that works is if you have a developer will come in and build a neighborhood, and they will build that infrastructure, and then it becomes the city's responsibility to maintain it once that neighborhood is built. So as far as us having to put in the infrastructure, we'll have to get to the neighborhood, but the builder or the developers are responsible for putting all the infrastructure, the fire hydrants, the streets, the curbs, all of those things in when they develop the neighborhood.
And those are pretty big expenditures, wouldn't you say? I mean, Don, what's your experience on
Well,
that?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it is, but my question is where's the property? I mean, where's the land? You know what I mean? Where are you gonna put these things?
As far as the housing goes?
Yeah, I mean,
the only one I know of it now is behind Walmart. Is that?
yeah,
Is that
the
the
Walmart
one?
property. And,
Yeah, we had a developer at one time, I don't know if you guys remember, was going to build a neighborhood out there. And then they backed off of that project, but there has been interest before in building a pretty good sizable neighborhood in there.
yeah. And
The problem Houston runs into is that we have so many pipelines that come in and out of town, and all of those have right of ways which you can't build on top of.
Right.
So that becomes an issue as to staying away from those pipeline corridors.
Right, yeah. I know the school, when they built the middle school, there was an issue. And that's why
Yeah.
the 9th Street entrance curves. And now they're over building the new PK through 4 building. And I think there was an issue there, but I think they got that worked out. But you're absolutely right. I think people would be amazed if they saw the pipeline map. The people that don't know, you know what I mean? They'd be amazed at the maze of pipes that are underneath our feet.
They always the 811 message, of course, call before you dig. Well, you might as well call it. You might as well just go ahead and call if you're going to stick anything in the ground in Cushing, because there's pipeline all over the place.
I know.
That's just the way it is. Yeah. Okay. I want to take a little bit of a break here while I search for this code that we need to get to Mr. Lofton and Terry as well. Here in just a minute. We'll take a quick break, and we'll come back here in just a minute. Stick with us.
Yes, sir.
Now on Saturdays, watch the studio show live at 10:30 a.m. Watch Cushing Matters the third Monday of every month, only on the Hub Network. The Cushing Matters Master Panel with financial advisor Trevor Friedel, former commissioner and chairman John Henkel, and former commissioner and the first female mayor and chairwoman of Cushing, Marilyn Duff.
I just sent you a text with a code that I used. And then the meeting number is a phone number.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct, and that should, sorry, John, you just sent that to me, look, there it is, right there. Okay, and let me get this sent to everybody that's needed, and we'll get moving here. All right, so, get back to normal here a little bit. Let's try it again. There we go. There is Don. Yeah, there's Don, and there is John. Okay, sorry, we're all back together. Good grief, a lot of buttons to push. I can give you kind of an idea. This is what it looks like from my point of view here. All these buttons and all this stuff up here. So, you know, forgive us for making a few of those mistakes and letting you see a little bit behind the scene. But again, you know, probably the biggest thing that we've seen happen to Cushing in a long time is going to be this refinery, and so. The growth being pretty immediate in town, or not very immediate, but when the construction starts,
yes.
Oh my gosh, that's going to be an influx of people, is it not?
Yeah, well, even when they were building the tanks, you know, we had our numbers at the school were way up. I mean, in the 700s, and you know, now we're back to about where we've always been, in about the 550s, 600. I'm sorry, I'm talking about the high school, not the total kid population. That's over 1,000. But I just remember that we were always on the cusp between 3A, 4A. We were always in that cusp, and now we're sitting kind of nicely in the middle of 4A. But you know, it's not a fear. I don't think it's a fear. Is that we'll have so many people come in that will move up to 5A. But you know, the more the merrier. The way I think, especially if we have the infrastructure to sustain it, and people are coming in, because think of all the ancillary businesses that are going to come in because of the refinery. So I mean, that's you know, it's just not like we're going to get the refinery and that's it. There'll be a lot of other things that come in around that, and that to me that's the exciting part.
It is. There's just a lot to consider there. There's a lot to get done. Now, John, I've got you on screen here. Terry, I've got you. I don't know if you can hear us or not. We're having a little trouble seeing you. You look a little ghostly there, so I'm not sure.
Is he wearing green?
Yeah, I'm here.
We've got you in the right square and everything, but you're kind of ghosted a little bit. So I'm not sure if that's the connection. I'm gonna move John. Watch this magic.
You know, Terry, most people that are on the lake get darker.
Yeah.
You're right. Well, we can certainly hear you, Terry. So we want to certainly John Hinkle's with us as well tonight on screen with you, and so we'll just continue the conversation with you guys. Not working exactly the way we wanted it to. It's not all smoothed out yet, but we'll have it in. John, you're kind of hidden behind me, but. It's okay. I'll try to move you up there a little bit. We can see everybody.
There we go.
All right. So I apologize to the viewers for kind of the mess here, but anyway, Terry, let's go to you and just what do you have for us this evening? What do you feel like the agenda is going to cover tonight, and what's the most important thing we should look for?
Well, you know, tonight it's really a lot of consent agenda items, and so we've taken a different approach to the consent agenda, meaning that things that we discussed in our major financial presentation and then are ultimately approved as a part of our CapEx plan for 23-24. We now treat those things as consent agenda items. We don't take it back before the council to have a second review or a third review. That second and third review is actually already done before the budget is ever approved. So the majority of things tonight really are consent agenda items. We'll execute a new lease agreement with Project Heart to take care of the Senior Citizen Center. We also have an item on there with the police and fire department that allows us to track our police and ambulance service in real time. So if they go out on an emergency call, let's say you send an ambulance, for an example, out in rural Cushing, and say something bad happens, we have a way to track that. To track that ambulance and know exactly where it's at in real time. Most people don't know that we here in the last couple of years, we've installed computers in all of our police cars. So it allows our officers to not only do reports, They can also run some basic driver's license inquiries, tag inquiries, and things like that. So that's actually in partnership with the Payne County Sheriff's Office. So we appreciate them and their partnership. And then, really, we have a big deal on here to execute an initial contract with a consulting firm. Medicare is making us do some research and work on claims, and so we're going to engage a consultant to come in and help us with that. It's very, very detailed work that will require a lot of attention, and we feel like outsourcing that creates a better opportunity to avoid any issues with Medicare when they come in and ultimately look at our stuff. And so we'll do an agreement for this fiscal year, and then in 24-25 we'll actually have a financial transaction, which would be about $28,000. So, but the majority of everything tonight are going to be mostly all consent agenda items, with exception of one executive session, and we anticipate that executive session probably not lasting more than 5 minutes.
Gotcha. And no tips on the executive session, right?
I can tell you it's not bad.
Oh, it's
so
not
that's,
bad. Okay, well, that's more a tip than I expected you to say, so that's pretty good. Always ask the question, right? Always ask the question.
Yeah, well, it's not bad. I mean, so, every once in a while you have to have those in order just to, maybe hit something real quick that you've been working on. And so it's just to provide a really fast update to the commission. I think one thing that, and I think Chairman Amon, our former chairman, can attest to this. I didn't get an opportunity to serve Chairman Hinkle in his leadership role as the chairman, but Chairman Amon can tell you that since our leadership team has come in and started leading, we communicate, I think, very effectively with the elected officials, probably sometimes more than they want us to, but I don't think that's a bad thing. And so there's not a lot that they're not up on, as I would say. And, bad grammar is that people are typically down on what they ain't up on. But we do an overtime job of communicating with the elected officials. From our summary sheets now for the city council include a summary, a major summary of what it is that we're working on a particular issue, the financial breakdown of it, and then obviously a recommendation. So it's a lot more in depth than what it was 5 years ago when our leadership team came in.
Well, I think that's something everybody would say, that the information that you give out to all the commissioners has always been very accurate and very, very detailed, I would say, in what's going on. And so everybody should be very well informed that's on the commission as well. And I know that Mr. Orton and Mr. Brannion were here a week or so ago and said the exact same thing, that they get a lot of good information from you, Terry, and they really appreciate that. So.
Yeah, and now that Derek is in the office here next to me, then that's just really amplified even greater, because we both just believe that having really clear and informative communication is better than trying to suppress information and keep things away from the elected body. It's the elected body that gives us the resources to do our job. We can't do our job without them. They don't just set policy, but they also help set financial direction for the city based on what staff may or may not recommend. And so we put a lot of work into really prepping them and us being prepared to answer questions to help move the city forward with projects and so on and so forth.
Very good. And so I want since there's not a lot other big major breaking stuff on the agenda tonight, it's more consent items and it's more normal business and that sort of thing. There was something on there about new signage and that sort of thing. Is that a vote this evening?
It is not. It's just a discussion item. So Commissioner Brannion had requested that item be put on. Something he's talked about since he was with the Cushing Economic Development Foundation, and Chairman Amon, you probably remember this. He talked a lot about having welcoming signs in addition to the pipeline crossroads capital markers. So he wanted that item on there for discussion. He typically has a PowerPoint or handout of some kind that I'm sure he'll probably get into today. I would remind the community that the last 2 budget years, we have set aside $55,000 for new wayfinding signs. And that gives us an opportunity we said that when the highway project was completed, which should be completed later this fall, that we would go in and put up brand new wayfinding signage that will allow people to find, different things here in town, whether it be the sports complex, the Broadway district, things like that. So we went outside of the city to actually get a committee of people to actually work on that. I think Dr. Amon, number one, respectfully, chairman, is on that committee. And so there's a group of citizens that are working on that along with economic development. So we took it out of our hands. So hopefully that perspective from those group of highly qualified citizens would help put us in a good position to have some great wayfinding signage here in the future.
And when you talk about wayfinding signs, you're talking about pointing directions to on major streets as you come into Cushing, you know, where downtown's located, where the hospital's located, where the sports complex is located, like you said. It's just that kind of signage.
Yes. The aquatic center, you know,
Aquatic
so
center, right. Youth center,
yeah,
all that kind of
like
stuff.
that.
We had Mike and Jared on the studio show a week or so ago, and they did a good job coming in and talking about what's going on at the youth center. I know that's something that everybody in here has always been a big part of, and I thought they did a good job of articulating what's going on down there. Anything about the youth center you'd want to add this evening, Terry?
No, you know, that facility was constructed, I think, and completed like in 84, 85. And from the transition and leadership of the Frisbee family over to Mick Evans and then now over to Mike Wilson, you have to stop and think when you go in there, wow, how well maintained this thing has been kept all these years since the 80s. And so one of the things that I think would be advantageous to the community, obviously not this year or next year, but at some point, look at some major renovations, kind of like they've done at the high school, where you go in and really update and modernize the look, modernize the inside of the facility. I think it's probably a good time for something like that in the next 3 or 4 years. But at the care of that facility, I really want to commend the staff there. Not only that, but our sports complex, the same thing. You know, I'm awfully proud when I go out when they host tournaments. There's no field that looks like ours, and we don't have turf on our fields. You know, a lot of people are going to turf, and we actually went out and did some cost estimates for turf, for our facilities. And let me just give you an example of what something like that would cost. Because I have it here. You're looking at just a tick over $1 million. And that's just doing 2 fields. So that's not even doing, you know, all the fields at the sports complex. But second to none with Mike and the entire staff there at the youth center. Mm-hmm.
One thing they did mention that, of course, caught our attention, I know is going to be close to everybody's heart and mind here a little bit, is the possibility of the Elton Willard complex out there, or a building possibly being built out there at the on the complex grounds that will allow the officials a place to change and maybe get away from the crowd a little bit after all the great calls they just made. We all had a little bit of a chuckle when we were bringing up Elton and how much Elton was involved in all that and how much he cared about the facility.
Well, that's going to be another great addition to the sports complex. We were just talking about that today. Derek and I were with Mike, just kind of figuring out where we wanted to insert that into our capital buy plan. And so a lot of people don't realize we have a 2-page capital summary of projects, and then we quarter those out because we try to cash our way along, meaning that we try to collect enough receipts that when that money is spent, we already have the receipts in place, meaning we already have the funding in place. Funding is in place, but I kind of like to go on a cash basis. And so that way, if we run into something that causes us a problem, then we can back out of a project and not move forward with it because we see the revenue's taking a downturn.
Right. Well, and that's there's probably a lot of private funds. I think there's some private funds involved in that too, a little bit from that have been donated in Elton's name as well. And so that we know that's it's a sentimental, obviously, addition there to the sports complex that I know a lot of people would appreciate.
Where would that go? Where would that go, Terry?
It is going to go just north of the concession stand, out behind that I'm going to call it the third baseline of that little boys field.
Oh, okay.
But it'd be just north of the concession stand. Okay. Something too, and I don't know if these guys talked about this or not, but you know, another great improvement that we're going to make at the sports complex before the next baseball season starts is we're going to cover all the way around both concession stands on the men's and women's fields. And so when you come out there next year, we'll have brand new covering over all that. So if someone hits a foul ball or we have a capacity crowd, you're not going to have people sitting in the heat. So we're going to do that. We've also set money aside this fiscal year to do renovations of the bathrooms, to bring those kind of up to a little bit better standard, something we can all be proud of when we have guests in our town or our own constituents out there using those facilities. So those are two other major improvements going to be going on at the sports complex this fiscal year, which just started here a few weeks ago.
Well, that's always a big deal in the summertime. Of course, that complex being used all the time. If it's not raining, they're having games out there. But I mean, there's not too many games going on lately because of all the rain we've had.
A lot of rain. Mm-hmm.
Any update on some of the rain issues we've had, some of the water issues, and any of those problems you've been trying to get solution to, and ODOT maybe helping out a little bit, or any resolution on those?
Yeah, Joe, that's a really touchy question, but I'm going to answer it because it's the right thing to do.
Sorry to ask you that.
No, it's the right thing to do. We have been more than insistent with ODOT that they come up with a solution that solves the water issue downstream from the new 36-inch drain pipe that was put in beside beside Brahms, and they're on the south side of Brahms. And so we've even went as far as saying, hey, if you really have an issue with making some recommendations and committing financially to a solution, you need to let us know, because could be an opportunity that we could partner to try and lessen the impact on our residents. What makes that really difficult? When that project was getting off the ground, I had put ODOT on notice that was going to be an issue, that water was going to be an issue there, because they were upsizing the drainage. You're putting more concrete in. It was just going to be very problematic. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I'm proud of, when all that stuff busted loose, I went over there on a Sunday evening when I found out about what was going on, and talked with those individuals that had been greatly impacted. And I committed to him that we were going to work on it. But when I brought it up to the ODOT division director, Derek, and he admitted that I had broached this very concern, and that they had looked at it and then they just kind of dropped it. And so we stayed on them. They haven't had a progress meeting now in several weeks. So I really don't. When I say progress meeting, there are biweekly progress meetings that take place at Allen Construction's office site out on Grandstaff Road, but they haven't had one of those in several weeks. So I really don't know where that stands. But the problem in that alley, one of the things that we looked at was extending the drainage all the way down to Michigan. But the problem is natural gas is in that alley, so there's not enough space for the appropriate reinforced concrete piping that you would need to go through there, or any other type of piping that need to go through there. So you'd have to go south down to Walnut, which is just a block over, and then try to figure out where to send the water from there. And Walnut Street from Highland all the way out to the high school, if you think about it, has no curb, and it really doesn't have any gutter. Mm-hmm. That's why we have such a terrible problem at Howerton and Walnut that's washed out, right, because the water builds up there. So we've been, believe it or not, we've been very proactive. I've had an engineer out several times to look at some of those issues and challenges, and it all comes, and I hate to say this, but it's the truth, it all comes back to money. We don't generate enough money to fix the streets that need to be fixed. We're battling internally with ourselves now. We have $4 million allocated for streets for fiscal year 23-24. Do we go out and fix 9th Street east of Linwood out to the city limits? That road has fallen apart. We know in a couple of years that road is going to be the main road to get in and out of the elementary center. Mm-hmm. This could be our one opportunity to fix that road. And we've already had an engineer out. We've already done the surveying. We did the surveying here in the last 60 days. We've had an engineer out there on site a couple times. We've already done a cost projection for it, so we know it's going to be about $1.7 to $1.9 million, just say $2 million, to make the appropriate improvement down 9th Street by widening that road and heading east to the city limits.
Yeah, I was going to say the width of that road is going to be the big issue, is it not?
Yeah, well, we'd have to widen it. So if you drove down 9th Street today, you would see stakes all up and down 9th Street. That's us. And so we did that, being proactive to see exactly what that would look like if we needed to go out, and did we have to go out and buy easement, and it looks like by all accounts we have plenty of right-of-way and easement to work with. But it becomes a question of money, because we'd have to take it out of that $4 million. Well, You take it out of that $4 million, it leaves you $2 million. Well, I can tell you $2 million, it's $1 million a mile to pave a road. And that's if you just grind the road up and then lay over. But if you take the entire road up because the bases fell, which is we have some of those areas, Walnut and Howerton, we have it in the 800 block of East 3rd real bad, and we have it in the 900 block of East 4th real bad, and we got it really bad down at the intersection of 3rd and Steel. So those are all three high priority areas that we need to look at. But we're not going to have enough money to do all those. And so, you know, where do your priorities lie? Do you look to the future, or do you look to now and then hope that you have another funding source that you may be able to draw money from that would help, you know, make those road improvements? And you know, the two chairmen there, I know they understand exactly what I'm talking about. It's just there's just not enough money generated from motor fuel tax and license tax sales. There's just not.
Well, that's all very true, and it's very difficult to you know, get ahead of that game, even just keep up with it is hard enough. And so both these guys understand that, and I think you would go back to the days of the budget exercise that you guys all had us do, even when you were a commissioner, Terry. Taking $100 and trying to allocate it, you know, to cover everything in the budget is pretty doggone difficult to do. Everybody wants to focus on their priority, right? But there's just no money left. Really, all you're talking about sales tax coming in, right?
Yeah, and that was an exercise that Chairman Amon and I did at our Cushing Conversations things that we got out and did in the community, and I was really proud that we got out and did those. And when we did the $1 exercise, the $100 exercise, we had and Chairman Amy, you can jump in here, but we had people in a panic trying to figure out how they were going to fund different things. They just didn't know how they were going to do it.
Well, because everybody went to safety, everybody put the money in fire and police.
Yes.
And then neglected sewer, water, streets. You know what I mean? Like youth center stuff, amenities. And then they would say, well, we want this. And I'm like, okay, well, if you want that,
take something away from
something has to be taken away from something else.
Yeah.
And,
So, yeah, it's not as easy as it looks. And both the chairmans there, they know how difficult it is to formulate a budget, and they know how difficult it is to try to sort through what may be the priority today.
Right.
One thing I'm really proud of that we've done here since our leadership team has come in, we've put a 5 to 7 year CapEx plan that involves infrastructure, quality of life, and then other things. And so we have a 3-page plan that guides us on a yearly basis in terms of things that we've set up to structure as priorities of working with the council. So, you know, we have plans in place, but every bit of those plans take a lot of money. And we have a lot of green boxes on our plan, green meaning that's been complete, but we have a lot of empty boxes just because the funding priorities change from year to year.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, it's just, and that's why you got to have a strategic plan, because it seems like there's never any extra. That's what you were saying. You know, in here, you're constantly going uphill, and you never get to do the things that might really be the fun things that people want, instead of just the things that we need here in the community. And so that's always the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Well, Terry, I know we've kept you close to meeting time up there. I know you probably got to go, but thanks so much for taking the time and coming on with us again. I apologize for the ghosting issue. We're going to figure that out, but we could hear you very clearly, and so that's a good thing. I think it's good for the citizens to hear from you and directly from what your point of view. So,
well, you know, Joe, I'm always willing to come on and always willing to have a conversation, and that's never a problem. And you don't have to wait a year and a half to come in and see if I have anything written down as far as projects go. So,
I got you. Well, appreciate that, Terry. Thank you. We're going to continue Cushing Matters on the future. We'll get some of these other bugs worked out, but Terry, thanks so much for attempting to be on here, and we'll get you where we can actually see you next time, and instead of just hear you. So thanks so much, Terry.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Chairman. We'll see you.
All right, John, while we got you there too, I think Marilyn was on her way in too, so we're going to hear a little bit probably from her as well on her perspective on that kind of stuff, but just any response to what Terry had to say about some of the projects going on tonight?
No, I think he's spot on, and he's right. You know, it's a balancing act, figure out, you know, what are you going to fund and when you're going to fund it, and do you have enough money to do it? And I know from back in the days when I was fire chief, you know, from a department head's perspective, you always think that your project is the most important, which is, and then when you get to the level of being on the council, you realize that They're all important, but you try to have to think ahead, what's the best for the community and what's going to advance the community and make it safe. So it's a hard job to do. And there's none of those, all those projects are worthy. And when you sit down and look at them, as I'm sure Mr. Amon has, you look at all of them, you understand that every one of them is heartfelt and they're good and they're with good intention to do good for the community, but you only have so much money. So you got to do what you can do with the budget you have. So, and our town has always been very good physically with managing its money. And that's one thing about it. And one thing I really liked about our city is that we have always been very transparent. And you hear all the time about people going, I just don't know what goes on in the city. I just don't understand what's happening. Well, one thing in Cushing, Oklahoma, you understand what's going on. And there's nobody trying to ever hide anything. They're always willing to talk to you and tell you and explain why. Not just because it said so, but the reason behind the actions they're taking. So I've always, and then Derek coming up now to be the assistant city manager, I think is I've watched that young man grow up, and he's going to be a great asset.
I assume he was on the force when you were a fire chief. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, I hired Derek.
Did you? Okay.
And watched Derek grow as a junior fireman up to fire chief. And one of the things that always makes you proud, a lot of people always say, hey, they're always afraid someone's going to outdo them. And my opinion always was that if the guy behind me does better than I did my job. I'm mentoring those guys along, and every one of those guys that's came up from, in fact, I worked with Derek, but Chris Pixler works at Enbridge with me, and I've seen him go on to do things, and Brent Kerr and all those young men. And I worked when I was a fire chief, Terry was a police chief. So we worked together for many years. And so the one thing that's always made me proud is that all those guys have came along and left things better than when they found them. And you can't ask for anything better than that. That's a legacy. And as long as your community has people that are willing to do that, that's what makes an outstanding community.
Gotcha, I agree. And so we're gonna take a little break. I'm gonna try to bring Marilyn in here real quick, get her in on this conversation, kind of balance it out. We got these three guys talking about this, but I wanna cover the one last issue this evening about the reserve, and that's something we've been talking to Jerica about down there, and Jonathan Huseman as well. The question comes up all the time about what is the reserve, and from these points of view, I mean, all of the other guests that will be in the studio here in just a minute are all former chairmen. And so if we can't get a pretty good answer out of three former chairmen, I don't know who we'd talk to about it. You'd have to
Jerica.
Well, other than Jerica, we need to get her in. We couldn't get her in here last time.
She knows where all the money is.
Exactly. So we'll get her in. And I've had her explain it to me. By the time she got done explaining it, I wasn't sure what my name was.
Well, you and I went round and round one night about it. And, and I still don't think we came up with a consensus.
It's a tough issue. It's a tough issue. But I think I've got a little bit better way to explain it. So we're going to take a break, and we'll come back here. We'll get Marilyn in here on the conversation, and we'll come back and see what we can find out. So stay with us here in just a minute.
Now on Saturdays, watch the studio show live at 10:30 a.m.
I'm here.
Watch Cushing Matters the third Monday of every month, only on the Hub Network. The Cushing Matters Master Panel with financial advisor Trevor Friedel, former commissioner and chairman John Hinkle, and former commissioner and the first female mayor and chairwoman of Cushing, Marilyn Duff.
Back here on Cushing Matters, and we've added Marilyn here as Marilyn Duff, the first female commissioner we decided the other day, and the first female chairman. I'm moving the wrong thing around here real quick. So we'll get. I tell you, I've got to get this figured out where we're not quite doing so much of this on the screen all the time, but we'll get you. We're getting close, and I don't want to keep you guys from getting to the meeting, and all that. That's going to be good enough. So we'll take a look at that. There we go. There, boom, boom, boom. We got it. There we are. And there's
Oh,
Marilyn
Marilyn
right
away.
there. Okay, there's
Oh,
Marilyn. And there's John back
Hey,
there.
look.
Well, it's a visual mess,
It's a
but I'm just
double,
gonna
it's a double, it's a double
it's a double
Maryland.
Maryland, but
Oh my
that's
God.
okay.
It's like a
I'm
double
trying-
rainbow.
I'm trying to get,
Well, anyway, cover yourself up. You're right there. So
Yeah, I'm trying to
it's a
cover up.
visual mess, folks. And I'm sorry that you're just seeing all this stuff from
good
behind
to
the
see
scenes.
you, John.
Good to see you too, Marilyn.
I didn't know whether they could hear or not.
Well, so we were talking about the reserve, and of course, money's always an issue. And so the big issue with the reserve is that everybody says, well, you're just piling up all this money year after year after year. If we're saving, it sounds like when we talk about it that you're saving 30 to 50% of the budget every year, which sounds like a big number. Should be millions of dollars, right? But that's really not the case. So the way I think I've come to articulate a little bit of it, and you guys can all correct me if I'm wrong here, it's a little more like what the gold standard was for the United States. You have to have so much cash, liquid cash, not cash that's tied up, but available cash in the bank that you can pull right out of the bank that covers 30 to 50% of that month's expenditures. Is that correct? Does anybody want to correct me on that?
I thought it was longer than that. I thought it was 6 months.
Well, maybe it is
John,
6
maybe you can correct me, but I thought we needed to have six, if some catastrophe happened and everything got shut down, that we
That's
would
right.
need to have 6 months worth of monies to keep the city going until we fixed whatever needed fixed. That's the way
Yeah,
I
that-
remember it, but.
You're absolutely correct. I was always told that you were supposed to have, and I guess there's different figures for different, but what they always told me was you were supposed to have a year and a half in reserve if you lost every single revenue stream the city had
And here
to
I was saying
recover.
it was a year, so. we
So you
got-
had, so I
Okay.
had, so.
I had a month, you had 6 months, you had
Yeah.
a year and
a year and a half. I'll take the year and a half.
Yeah.
So it's a bidding process. So that just shows you, though, that there is some confusion on that. It's really not a clear explanation. I really want to
Well,
get
we'll just find out what
Jericho.
that actually is.
Right.
There's-
Yeah.
There's bound to be
Yeah.
a correct answer.
Well, and I think that the point that Jericho made to me when we were discussing this before is that there's now a policy set. So they're trying to clarify. They're trying to make, and they obviously know. And I think Terry would probably clarify this too. But they obviously know exactly what the policy is. But it's a little hard for all of us to understand it.
Well, but I think to your point, if it was, we're gonna take 30% of the budget, so we'll use $100 since that's easy to imagine. So we're gonna take $30 of that $100 every year and put it away, then to your thinking, we should have billions and billions of dollars. But I really don't think that's it. I think it's 30% of whatever,
Of the total.
whatever the budget is.
Right. But it's not, we're
At
not.
the time.
Right, but we're not, here's what I was confused and why I kept thinking it should accumulate and become bigger and bigger and bigger. You're not taking it out of the budget. You just have to have that, whatever that amount is, you have to have that in cash reserve
Right.
sitting over here.
Yes.
So we're not inventing new money or
No.
pulling money out of the budget and then stocking it over here in the bank. It has to be in the bank to cover what that
Yeah.
30 to 50%.
In case something crazy, like in case everything shuts down, we have to, the city has to continue. People still want to be able to turn their lights on and turn their sink on and flush their toilet, right? Those
Right.
are the three things.
And whatever it is, Jericho will know, because she knows how to do it.
Absolutely. Well, and I think, back when the budget talks were going on in May, it's one of the first questions that come up because everybody says, don't we have 70 or 80 million dollars just sitting over the bank somewhere that we're not using, and can't we throw some of that money at some of these projects, like the money we need for the road? I mean, can't we just throw money at that? Don't we have some money sitting over there? Honestly, we don't have that money sitting over there.
Like $1 million to do a mile of road.
And that's what Terry.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty expensive, and then that money is just in the road. I mean, it's there. You're not going to get it back. So I think we're working on it. We're getting a better explanation of that. We're getting a better understanding of it, but we need to know the length of time and how that actually functions. I had the same questions. I mean, when does that get pulled out of the budget? Do you hold out when you get sales tax money? The state gives you the sales tax money. Do you immediately take that 30% and go run over here to this bank account and protect it, and I walk it with an armed guard or something? I don't know, what do you do? But that's not the way it works either. It's all on paper. but it's having available in cash,
Right.
liquid money. And the point there is you can't invest that. You can't put those into CDs where they're gaining interest. They can't be locked down. And is that what you guys, the way you understand it?
I think that's the way I remember.
Correct, and we also need more promotion for sales tax, so we can,
Right.
promotion for sales, so we can get sales tax to go up
To
there.
go up, right, which would help on the revenue side, because that's really just talking about expenditures. So it's in the budget, it's whatever our expenditures are, that's what the 30% or the 50% number is of that amount. So it's not necessarily what we're taking in, it's what we're spending.
Yeah.
And it affects more than that too. By being physically sound in your city, that affects the city's credit rating, because the city has a credit rating just like you and I do. And so whenever we go up for bond issues and other issues, the amount of interest that we have to pay, say if we have to build a new sewer plant or a water plant or whatever that capital project is, by being physically sound, that helps us on our rates, which saves all of us a lot of money.
Absolutely. Well, all those things are hard to understand, I think, from the layman's point of view, from the everyday citizen's point of view, because we don't see those big numbers. I mean, it's a big budget, but the county's bigger, the state's bigger, the national budget's even more huge. So the problems get more exponentially complicated as you go out to these other groups. But
Bigger than our home budgets.
absolutely, and balancing our checkbook, which probably some of us don't do a very good job of that. I know mine's probably not adding up exactly to the penny like it's supposed to either. So those are complicated issues, and it's hard to work through it when you're talking about a stack of papers and all the accounts that have to be managed, the departments that have to be managed, all the people that have to be managed, and then there's benefits on top of that, which cost, and there's just a lot of cost to be any entity, and if you're in business for yourself or if you're a city government, and you have some liability,
Right.
what if you're sued for something, or what if you're,
absolutely.
those are all big questions.
And again, there we are so privileged to have a city hall with all its staff that we do have that keeps those things straight.
And then we have all the authorities, certain money goes to the
Right.
industrial authority, you know what I'm saying? So,
Hospital authority, and that's another question. Those things are separated out, and there's some legal restrictions and restraints on
Right.
those different authorities and those different accounts, and so we want to get into that at some point in time. We don't have time to do it all tonight. Now, I promised you that we would get an Amen Says in
but
here.
we don't have to do it, Amen says, that's fine. I can save it until next time.
Don's going to save, and
I'm
Amen
gonna
said,
save it. I'll
Amen
save
said
it.
a few things tonight, but we're going to save it. Actually,
Yeah.
Amen said, now I promise that as we get through more of these shows, they'll get a little more organized, at least visually, and we'll get everybody on here right. The concept, I think, is good, but I haven't been able to pull it off yet. So we're just kind of working our way through it.
Hey, can
But-
I say something before we
Yeah,
go? Can I
sure.
say congratulations, Joe, on your new
Position.
appointment at
Oh.
at Central Tech as the digital media guy? I think that's
Well,
fabulous.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
I'm pretty excited about it. It's that now. You're taking. I'm sure everybody's having a good laugh about part of this.
Yeah,
Because,
if they're watching this show, they're going, "Oh
yeah,
my
and they're like,
gosh!"
"Well, this is going to be great." But no, but the truth is that I am not a teacher, and so I'm coming right out of industry and
You'll
going
be
on
all
into
right.
that. So
You'll be fine.
Well, I've seen these shows before and you haven't had a lot of problems, so
Yeah, you'll
it
be
happens
fine.
well,
occasionally.
even though there's two of you, yes, that's both of you said that, Marilyn. That's good. I got that twice from Maryland in one
still two up
in one
there.
statement. That's pretty good. So no, I'm excited about it. It's a great place out there. A lot of good people. Gosh, Kirby Applegate, Lori Todd. I can
Kent Burns.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff, yeah.
Particularly
Kent Burns. I
Kent.
mean, it's just all the people out there. It's a cool place, and it's going to be kind of fun. I'm kind of excited to see we're in a completely new room.
Oh, sweet.
And so if you're thinking about taking the digital media class in the next couple of years, if you're coming up through school, you come out there, it's going to be a whole new place. And so I wish I probably have an eighth of the room that is out there. It's huge. It's a huge room out there. So it'll be interesting to see what it turns into in the next couple of years. But anyway,
That's awesome.
thanks, Don, for saying that. I
You're welcome.
appreciate that. All right, well, we're gonna switch over here and get to the John. Hey, thank you so much tonight for being a part of it and coming on and being on the whole show. We appreciate that. Finally got you on here and got to hear from you a little bit, and we appreciate so much your commitment to doing this show and your perspective as a former chairman and what you do now in pipeline safety and just a citizen of Cushing. We appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. It's my privilege.
Thank you, John, very much. Marilyn, thank you so much. Marilyn sat in your seat last show, Dawn, and you know, there was no Marilyn Says. We didn't do a Marilyn Says. we actually, you flew in your Amon Says last month.
That's right, I did. I had to put it in digitally.
Did that, but it's very nice to have access to Marilyn and John and everybody else that has all the knowledge and the experience of being in those positions, and we get that perspective. And so
Well, I'm pleased to be here with these young men. They're the ones that know what's going on right now.
say that young man again. That's I feel even better. I'm going to turn more than young here in a few weeks. So, and I'm not even going to talk about Don, how old Don is, but anyway. So anyway, but hey, appreciate everybody. Appreciate Don. Appreciate Marilyn. Appreciate John. Trevor Friedel would normally be with us. He's on vacation. It's summertime, so eventually we're going to have a show where everybody's in here at the right time, in the right spot. Visually, only one of them. Two Marilyns here.
I can't be double.
You can't, yeah, so anyway, we'll let everybody get on off to the commission meetings. We'll switch you over to the simulcast. The commission meeting's starting right now. So good night, everybody. Thanks for watching us on Cushing Matters. See you next time.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you for watching Cushing
Hour
Matters.
7 o'clock, and we'll
This
call to
has
order the
been a
regular
Hub
meeting.
Network production.
Madam Clerk, would you
We
call
now
the roll?
join the commission meeting in progress.
Present.
Present. We do have a quorum. Everybody will stand. We'll say a prayer and pledge of allegiance.
Let's bow our heads this evening. Father in heaven, we love you, Lord, today. We're grateful, God, for the life that you've given us and the town, Lord, in which we live. We ask, Father, that your blessings be upon it. We ask, Lord, you take care of those, God, that work for this city. They're in a foreign land fighting for us. Guide us, direct us, and give us wisdom tonight. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item number 2, public input and any unscheduled personal appearances.
Mr. Chairman, we didn't receive anything by email or phone or otherwise.
Okay. Item number 3, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Item 3A, approved claims and payroll totaling $972,268.75. Item B, approved minutes, June 20th, 2023, regular meeting. Item C, authorize the purchase of aviation fuel and expend up to $60,000. Item 3D, authorize the purchase of no-lead fuel and diesel fuel and expend up to $30,000. Item 3E, authorize the chairman, Board of Commissioners to execute the fiscal year 2023-2024 lease agreement with Project Heart for meals at the Senior Citizen Center. 3F, authorize the city manager to issue a purchase order to Noonan's Equipment and Automotive, LLC of Stroud, Oklahoma, in the amount of up to $22,692.73 for a new Grasshopper 900D riding mower for the airport and authorized payment. 3G, approve payment to the Oklahoma Municipal Management Services in the amount of $5,700 for the payment of invoice number 15417 for inspection services. 3H, approve payment to the Cushing Chamber of Commerce in the amount of $5,250 for 2023-2024 membership investment dues. Item 3I, approve payment to the Oklahoma Municipal League in the amount of $9,024.31 for 2023-2024 OML annual service fees renewal. 3J, approve payment to GeoSafe Inc. in the amount of $8,000 for subscription renewal of mobile service for the police department. 3K, authorize the city manager to issue a purchase order to Metaclaims, Inc. in the amount of $36,858.90 for data preparation and services for the GEMT program and to authorize payment. 3L, authorize the city manager to execute a contract with Public Consulting Group, PCG, provide cost reporting services and submission to the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, on behalf of the Cushing Fire Department. 3M, authorize the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Arledge and Associates, PC, as proposed, and to authorize payment as services are rendered. 3N, appoint Julie Frank, Chris Fowler, Sharon Sissom, Gabrielle Farnes, and Chase Blankenship to new terms on the Cushing Youth and Community Center Advisory Board through July 2026.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just a small correction there, Julie Pools.
Julie Pools?
Yes, sir.
Okay. 3O, acknowledge 2 terms expiring on the Planning Commission. 3P, acknowledge 2 terms expiring on the Board of Adjustment. 3Q, statement of cash and investments as of June 30th, 2023. Would any commissioner like a short explanation?
Chairman, I was concerned about item K. It doesn't need to be removed from the consent agenda. I talked to staff today about what that was, and maybe a short explanation about that might be useful.
Absolutely. Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, may I call Chief Novotny to the podium?
Sure.
Chief Novotny, could provide an explanation for us. Thank you.
The GEMT program was something that Chief Griffith started in 2021 fiscal year, I believe. It's a program that brings down federal dollars for the Medicaid services that aren't paid for EMS services. So we get that program through Metaclaims, who's our billing service. So I think the payment for this past year was $273,000. And they charge 13.5% of the money that we bring in. So that 13.5% is that 36,000. It's a really good program.
All right.
Does that answer the
And,
question?
and it would be really tough for us to staff that up to do those claims ourselves, wouldn't it?
It would, yes. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think one more clarification, the GEMT is Ground Emergency Medical Transport is what that stands
Right,
for.
For EMTs. And
For our
transports,
EMS and
yeah.
paramedic service.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
I have a motion from Commissioner Dow to approve the consent agenda, and I have a second from Mr. Roberson. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All noes. Passes 5-0. Item number 5, general business. A general discussion on welcome signs at various city entrances. Mr. Brandon, I think you wanted this put on the agenda tonight, so I'll let you discuss this. If
Thank
would,
you.
please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a brief discussion, just so that we can all kind of get on the same page. Various organizations from the Chamber to the Economic Development Foundation have talked for a number of years about the absence of any real welcome signs in our town. I'm real proud of our unique crossroads of the world signs that were put up and have been maintained over the years by contributions by the oil companies. I just think a welcome sign is a little bit different and might be something that I think we definitely need to consider. As I've traveled around the last few years on motorcycle trips and other visits, I've taken pictures of really nice signs. Even some small towns have really nice permanent signs that are welcome, often made out of stone. In Texas, they're often made out of limestone. They're 4 to 8 feet tall, 12 feet wide, just nice graphics. And, you know, some of them are lit, some of them aren't, but we don't want to spend a ton of money on them, but it'd be nice to have something eventually that looks nice and just says welcome to our town, rather than just that we're the oil pipeline of the world. And we have the comprehensive plan started with Guernsey. We're going to have a lot of people involved in talking about our city and how we could make it better. And I think just a little of that would be good. And I separate that out from the wayfaring sign project that we've assigned, I think, $55,000 to over the next year. And these would just be a little bit different than those. So, I don't know. And, you know, we can't all talk with Open Meetings Act, and I just thought we'd just talk about it tonight, and that's all I have. I mean, some things you might want to consider: how far out of town you want it. Do you want it on the 3 main highways? Does it need to be on private property, on city property? How you do all that? You want flowers around it, that kind of stuff. And I don't have a real opinion about any of that, but I just want to get this started because groups have thought it's important, and I would just want it in the mix as we go forward.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to add to that? This is just a general discussion.
All right, I don't really have much input into the matter at the moment, but I've often thought about that same matter from time to time, and you know, it would be a nice, you know, when people come to our town or return to our town or passing through our town, you know, the polite thing to do is say welcome. So, you know, having a sign like that is aesthetically pleasing, that, you know, welcomes people to our town, I think is a good thing, and it would be a worthy investment at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, you know, a classy sign just says that the citizens are interested in the town and make it look nice. And, you know, when Main Street is finished, we're going to have a nice looking Main Street, and it'd be nice to, you know, just top it off with some signs somewhere along the way.
Right.
Anybody else?
And I would just like to point out, I think that's also a good idea, but I don't think that would mean, you know, removal of the Pipeline Crossroads.
Oh, no.
Because that is who we are, just something in addition to that. To
yeah,
welcome.
supplement them, not to replace
Absolutely.
them. Yeah.
So I think, go ahead, Chaplain.
No, go ahead.
And I like that discussion. I know that Commissioner Branyan, I've seen his presentation. Actually, he's got an old slide project that he brings out every once in a while that requires the Barn Brad Anderson slide machine. But nevertheless, those are good items to discuss. And with a comprehensive plan coming around, that's something that you can gain a lot of community input on. The other thing I would remind the council on is that the highway project for Main Street should be done this fall, absent there being any additional setbacks because of weather. You're looking at 25-26 for State Highway 18. And so I think you tie all those projects together and make it look really nice. And so there are some regulations that would be required to go aside an ODOT assigned highway or road, but those will not be a hindrance to anything I think that we would want to do with the appropriate easement or right-of-way access. So there'd be no problem. We would just need a check.
So do we need to wait until the projects are finished and then to figure out where we would like to have a sign?
I think Commissioner Branyan brings up a great point in that through the wayfinding process, which is ongoing now, through the wayfinding process has been committed to launching when the Main Street project is completed. But tying it back to the comprehensive plan, I think you gain more support. I think you gain more input, and then I think it creates an avenue by which it could become a priority with a lot of constituent support, so it would enable you to find a funding source for that.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet. Everybody good?
Yes, sir.
All right. We're going to move on to item 6A, Executive Session 25 OS 307B4, confidential communications between a public body and its attorney concerning a pending investigation, claim, or action if the public body, with the advice of its attorney, determines that disclosure will seriously impair the ability of the public body to process the claim or conduct a pending investigation, litigation, or proceeding in the public interest. And I'm assuming we still need to do this.
Yes. Yes,
okay. So we're going to move on to item number 7, any other new business which has arisen since the posting of the agenda and could not have been anticipated prior to the time of posting, 25 OS 311-9.
We're not aware of any, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Item number 8, city manager's communications, and we're going to defer this to Derek Griffith and Director Reed.
Well, thank you. Good evening, everybody. We just wanted to take a minute to highlight a really memorable Father's Day this year. And what I'm going to call a historic event that we've never faced, 98-mile-an-hour winds that we faced. And it involved or affected every division within the city. And I think you guys would be proud of the collaborative effort that took place to get us where we are today. I'll let Director Reed go into more detail here in a minute, but I'll give you some highlights as to what took place in the immediate, and then what's happened since. So, immediately following the storm, after I got the phone call from Director Reed here, we really identified 2 issues. We had a ton of streets blocked, so access to our town was severely hampered, and then we had a power issue, obviously, that everybody knows about. The street clearing we accomplished utilizing crews from streets, parks, the fire department, and water sewer maintenance. And this all took place at, what time was it?
The storm hit at 11:38.
So. I'm proud to say that before daylight, all the streets were cleared, with the exception of 2 large trees that we had blocking the roadway, which we enlisted the help of Arkansas Electric, which is the group that's doing the tree trimming now. They came in with some rather large chainsaws to help us get those out of the way. We didn't have equipment big enough to move them, so the early morning hours of that after daylight, we did get it all the way open, and then it went to, well, simultaneously, we had crews working on our power outages. An event that large, it taxes our resources really fast and what we can do. So we enlisted help from our mutual aid partners, GRDA, City of Edmond, City of Stillwater, and our crews all worked in shifts, basically, through the next week to get everybody on. The initial outage was, what would we have a report, 75% of the town was out on the initial?
The power production was estimating that we were 65 to 70% of the load had been lost. So that's a ballpark. I mean, we don't have an exact number, we just know that we lost a large percentage of their load. So I looked out the door of the tower and I could tell that the vast majority of town was without power. And that's when I started calling the managers to let them know that, okay, we've got a major issue. So
we convened at the safety center first, where I actually saw the city manager taking phone calls for outages. It was a good moment. We got him tagged out pretty quick, but I do want to, in regards to that, I want to say thank you to PD Dispatch, who took the brunt of those phone calls in the beginning, and then that effort shifted to the utility office, which had quite a job ahead of them for the next week, because the only way we have to do things right now to determine outages is by phone. I think there's a better way to do that. I think we'll talk about that here shortly, but it's a lot. And they did an excellent job at organizing that information, where the outages were, what was going on, and then organizing it in a fashion where the distribution teams could then go take care of it. So big thanks to them. The next phase of it is the dump site. What do you do with everything? Not only the trees and limbs, but the storm debris. We set up a dump site with the help of streets, parks, and the fire department did the DEQ permitting process for us. We called for dumpsters from Republic to haul off shingles and patio furniture and things that were damaged by the storm. And then the brush is piled there and pushed up to be burned at a later date by the fire department on a safe day. And then ongoing to the next phase is all the debris on the curbsides. So we looked at several ways to do that. Street Superintendent Mr. Youngman volunteered and asked to go serve in that capacity and get that cleared. So we certainly honored his request and appreciate his position. And he's doing that and anticipates the coming weeks. He has no end date yet. There's still work to be done on the street side, but every opportunity he has, he's picking up limbs for us. So that's what I have. You got anything you want to add in there?
I went around about a week after the storm and measured some of the debris piles throughout town, and we roughly figured that we had 25 to 30,000 cubic yards of debris piled up on the curb. Now that's not counting what was already hauled out there. The pile out there is very massive, so that we had a lot of tree damage. So didn't really see. I mean, there is some structural damage, but we didn't. The manager and I drove around, and then we picked up Chairman. We drove around and looked at the various damage, but there was damage, but not major damage. I mean, some roofs and stuff, but we didn't see any structures that were completely destroyed or anything like that. But I mean, there was some of the downtown businesses that had lost some windows, and then lots of shingles. And then there was several trees that were on houses. Mine also had a large tree on it. So, yeah, but yeah, I'd clocked 98 mile an hour winds 3 times up there. We were watching this all came from the storm that was tornado warned that hit the far northwestern tip of Payne County, and they warned on that, and we geared up and started watching at that point. But that storm come through, and we were watching some 60 mile an hour winds up around Ripley, and then you got down around Cushing, it was like 20 miles an hour, and then there was a couple down in Lincoln County that were running about 50 mile an hour, and then all of a sudden it just slammed us. But we got gusts 3 times at 98 miles an hour. So.
One more thing I would like to add is the dump site is still open to anybody that wants to dump from the public. It was open 7 days a week for the first 2 weeks, but now it's open just on the weekends through the end of July. And we'll see what it looks like at that point. We may extend it, or that may be it, but at this point it's open through the end of July. Anybody have any questions regarding that?
I kind of understand the protocol for sending the sirens for tornadoes, but you probably don't have one for hurricanes.
No, for straight line winds, no. And then, like I said, it was on us fast. I mean, we wasn't expecting it. I mean, I was expecting maybe 60 mile an hour winds, and when I reported it to the Weather Service, they were having a hard time believing that we've seen 98 mile an hour winds. I actually had to send them a picture of the high reading on the weather station from the tower, and then I got tons of questions from them from that point. But at first they were like, nah, I don't think we really believe that, but yeah. But yeah, usually for straight line winds, no, it's not a tornado activation or tornado siren activation event. So.
Anybody else have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Mr. Chairman, just a couple of the things that,
Yes,
if you
sir.
don't mind. So just to follow up on that, I know that I talked to Mr. Youngman today, and he collected just a little bit over 40 residences today. We did hire a semi-truck to help us. All we have are those small dump trucks. And so we've contracted with TKO. We went out for bids and contracted with TKO to use their semi and driver. And so that increases our efficiency to get into those residences, neighborhoods, I should say, and get that debris picked up. The dump site is open through the end of July from 8 to 4 on the weekends only. It's fully staffed. So if you live in the country or you live in town and you want to dump out there limbs and stumps, you can. You probably say, well, why in the world would you open it up to people who are not residents of Cushing? We don't want to create an opportunity by which people are going to go out and litter the county roads because they have nowhere to dump something or they don't feel like it's safe to burn it. So we wanted to create that opportunity for them. One last thing I wanted to touch on, I think this is so important. You know, we've had a lot of discussion about automated meter infrastructure here. We have $2 million set aside. If you look at our capital projects outlay, there's $2 million set aside. We're waiting on the substation project to be completed. We expect that to be completed probably April of 24, Mike Starks. So April of 24 is when we expect that to be completed. We went out for rebid, just so you know, we rebid the 69 kV underbill. It came in at $7 million. We only had one bidder. And so we paid the additional money, had a rebid, and got that down to $3 million. So we're going to be well within where we need to be, I think, you know, budget-wise. Part of us securing the loan had to do with not just the substation, but also the automated media infrastructure. You have the city of Stillwater here and the city of Edmond here. They are both AMI cities. And I started to go downtown and buy a puzzle tonight and give each one of you 4 or 5 puzzle pieces. And just say you have one opportunity to pick out the center piece of that puzzle, or the pieces that you have. That's what hunting a power outage is like on our system. And it's chaos. Because you have these guys running up and down the alleys and running up and down the roads trying to find where these outages are. I'll tell you, the unsung heroes that you don't see outside the linemen are the people in the 911 center and then moved into the building collections division who are trying to take those calls and coordinate that response. So GRDA is close to having some type of agreements, meaning that they're going to be state contract ready for AMI to proceed, that we may be able to get into that program a little bit early and then pay our way back out of it once the substation is complete, meaning that we owe or have no debt once that's done, possibly. But I just want to emphasize to you that AMI is mission critical when it comes to something like this. We went by and picked up Chairman Lofton and took him out with us so he could personally experience what those crews are going through. And it, in many respects, is just not very pleasant, because it's really a hunting game. And when you have, we've been in Stillwater's control center, Mike and I have, and they had an outage while we were in there. And they have these big screens like you see here. So you'd have one at the power plant, you'd have one in here in building and collections, one out at distribution. And when there's an outage in an area, it's going to give you a 1-block range. And so when that person calls in or persons call in and say, hey, we've got this particular area identified as the 500 block of South Cleveland, so we know right where it's at and we can go there. The method that we were trying to use was taking all those addresses down and then trying to divide the city into grids. And sometimes a lot of people are not as familiar with the address system here as police and fire, because I'm not a police officer anymore, but I was paid to know the streets. If you sent me somewhere, I shouldn't have to call in the dispatch or get a map out and figure out where I need to go, or punch it into the map system to figure out where I need to go. And so you'll be seeing something come back from us probably sooner rather than later to move us ahead. And so if you ask those crews that were here from Stillwater and the city of Edmond, they were probably scratching their head a lot of times just because of the complexity of trying to find the different outages. So, but I just want to say kudos to our linemen and those crews who came and assisted. Mike Starks was actually out of state attending a APPA conference, but Mike set up his own little command center, if you will, and was able to assist us with the mutual aid stuff and other things, even though he was out of state. So I appreciate him doing that. He was in a different time zone. He was 2 hours behind us. So he was in a different time zone. He was still responsive. And then Dub Hargrove led the effort for us here on the ground, in addition to the other men who serve out there in the power distribution center. So anyway, I just wanted to get that on the table and just let you know the complexities of what that looked like. And again, Chairman Lofton got to experience it that night. If I could have come by and picked all of you up, then Mr. Usman would have called me and got on me, and I didn't want to have any open meetings laws violations. So, but that would conclude our report. And I appreciate you all taking the time to listen to us through this evening.
I think something else that needs to be added to it, there's a lot of places in town, there is no alley.
True.
There's just a utility easement in the back, and there's no alley, and these guys are going up and down the alleys that a lot of times haven't been took care of properly. Mm-hmm. Like going through a jungle trying to find this stuff. That's
true.
Yeah, I don't have an alley behind my house. I was out for a couple days, and the thing I liked about being out, I got to go to the Hampton and stay because the hotel here didn't have any power. So, but I got breakfast at the Hampton, so there you go. I was really happy about that. Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? If not, we'll move on to item 9, Commissioners' Community Announcements. Tyson, you want to start off this evening?
This will be my first announcement as Commissioner. I just tell you guys I went to the Oklahoma Municipal League training, mandatory training for newly elected or appointed officials. And I learned a few things from the sessions that were interesting, you know, about budgeting and the different types of governments, you know, strong mayors, commissions, chartered cities like we are, and that was all pretty interesting. But what I learned most, I learned sitting around the table with other commissioners and councilmen, and it was hair raising. I so appreciate the way that we're able to see as councilmen what's going on in our city, see the budget plainly, and now, I mean, some of them were saying they had to get a FOIA request to just see what was being spent in their cities, and getting something on the agenda. They'd just have to beg the chairman to put it on there. Wouldn't do it for 2 or 3 meetings in a row, and I appreciate so much the way our city's running, the transparency the staff has. You don't have to do FOIA. Even citizens don't really have to do FOIA requests for most information. Most of the information citizens could really want is in the manager's report every month. So that's my announcement. It was a worthwhile full day training, but man, the lunch hour conversation was probably the highlight of the day.
Ms. Dow?
The only thing that I have to say is I appreciate Mr. Griffith and Director Reed's report. That was very detailed, and it was good to have insight into what was occurring that night. So thank you for that.
No announcements this evening.
I'd just like to say thank you to Brent Youngman and the Street Department for stepping up and taking on getting out the brush and debris. You weren't asked to, you weren't told to. You took it upon yourself, and I appreciate that, and all the other departments that have really had to work overtime and things to get us back to normal. I appreciate every one of you. Thank you.
Only thing I'll add is I did get to see all that night, and it was very impressive. And thank you all for the hard work you've done. It's been pretty toasty a few days, and it's going to be toasty out there picking up limbs for Mr. Youngman and his crews. Yeah. And I'll be thinking about you, Brent. Anyway, thank you all. I really do appreciate it. Okay, we will recess this meeting at 7:31. And we will go to the Cushing Municipal Authority meeting at 7:31. Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Mr. Robertson?
Present.
Mr. Brandon?
Present.
Ms. Dow?
Present.
Mr. Orton?
Present.
Chairman Lofton?
Present. We do have a quorum. Item 2, do we have any public input or unscheduled personal appearances?
We're not aware of any, Mr. Chairman.
Item 3, consent agenda. Item 3A, approved claims and payroll totaling $1,524,914.85. 3B, approved minutes June 30th, 2023, regular. 3C, authorize the purchase of diesel fuel for the power plant and to expend up to $25,000. 3D, approved payment to Algier Martin and Associates, Inc. in the amount of $9,608.79 for invoice number CMA 602-3001-523 on the Harmony Substation project. 3E, approved payment to OMUSA MISO in the amount of $7,756 for annual membership dues. 3F, approved payments to Eric Martin and Chantel Imhoff in the amount of $2,409 for purchases of right-of-way on the Sanitary Sewer Project 4 Extension 2 project. 3G, approved payment to Donald and Christine Jones in the amount of $12,000 for purchase of right-of-way on the Sanitary Sewer Project Extension 2 project. 3H, authorize the city manager to issue a purchase order to Key Equipment and Supply Company in the amount of $114,285 for a 2023 Ford Transit cargo van T350 sewer camera vehicle for the water, sewer, Department and to authorize payment. 3I, authorize the city manager to issue a purchase order to Automatic Engineering in the amount of up to $29,625.75 for the rehabilitation of one motive pump for the wastewater treatment plant and to authorize payment. 3J, authorize the city manager to issue a purchase order to IDEXX Laboratories, Westbrook, Maryland, in the amount up to $10,093.61 for E. coli testing equipment for the wastewater treatment plant and to authorize payment. 3K, authorize the city manager to issue a purchase order to P&K Equipment in the amount of up to $116,733 for one 2023 John Deere 60G compact excavator with angle blade and one 2023 John Deere 60G compact excavator without angle blade for the waste sewer maintenance department and to authorize payment. L, authorize the city manager to issue a purchase order to Noonan's Equipment and Automotive LLC of Stroud, Oklahoma in the amount of up to $18,629.40 for a Grasshopper 725 DT riding mower for the wastewater treatment plant and to authorize payment. 3M, authorize the city manager to issue a purchase order to Interworks Inc. of Stillwater in the amount of $8,383.20 for the purchase of a Dado backup with infinite cloud retention and to authorize payment. 3N, authorize the city manager to issue a purchase order to Interworks in the amount of $12,156 for the purchase of Office 365 for the IT department and to authorize payment. 3O, authorize the city manager to execute a professional services agreement with Arledge and Associates PC as proposed and to authorize payment as services are rendered. 3P, approve payment to German Roofing in the amount of $162,902.25 for roof replacement at the power plant. 3Q, approve payment to the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality in an amount of up to $9,500 for the wastewater treatment plant's annual discharge permit. 3R, authorize the city manager to issue a purchase order to TKO Equipment Sales and Rental LLC in the amount up to $25,000 for truck rental to assist in storm debris removal and to authorize payment. 3S, recognize non-paid utility report for city operations and public facilities for the 6/30/23 billing period. 3T, recognize statement of cash and investments as of June 30th, 2023. Would anybody, trustee, like a short explanation?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Roberson to approve the consent agenda and a second by Mr. Orton. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Noes? Ayes have it, 5-0. Any other new business, if any, which has arisen since the posting of the agenda and could not have been anticipated prior to the posting of 25 OS 311-9?
We're not aware of any, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we adjourn.
I second.
A motion to adjourn by Mr. Roberson and a second by Ms. Orton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Five. Oh, Miss. I called Miss Poole
Slip of the
what,
tongue.
while ago?
Nah, you done it.
Break. I've read too much.
It's okay. We're good.
You'll forgive me, won't you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those? Okay. We're gonna adjourn this at 7:38. This is the Board of Trustees, the Cushing Hospital Authority and the Cushing Industrial Authority, 7:38. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Mr. Robertson?
Present.
Mr. Brandon?
Present.
Ms. Dow?
Present.
Mr. Orton?
Present.
Chairman Lofton?
Present. We do have a quorum. Going to move on to item 2, consent agenda. 2A, approve CIA claims totaling $8,333.33. 2B, approve CHA claims totaling $67,133.14. 2C, approve minutes, June 20th, 2023, special joint meeting of the Cushing Hospital Authority, Cushing Industrial Authority, and the Cushing Educational Facilities Authority. 2D, approve budget amendment, amend the fiscal year 2023-2024 CIA fund budget for Cushing Pride. 2E, authorize the chairman of the Board of Trustees to execute change order number 2 to increase the contract by $65,182 with J. Lee Enterprises for the Memorial Park Walking Trail and to authorize payment. Would any trustee like a short explanation?
Chairman, I hate to ask again, but the item E, if staff would just, there's a comprehensive map in our packet, and that was useful. If staff would just say a little bit about that addition on the trail.
You want to talk about
Yeah,
that?
absolutely.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So when we did the initial trail project bid, we put a contingency in of about $85,000 in case there were some unknowns that we encountered that we didn't know anything about. The actual trail project itself is complete, with the exception of the bridge over by the aquatic center. So they're working. Weather's really hurt us there, so they're working to get that completed. There's going to be some new bollards there. There'll also be some new signage there, not digital signage, but signage that will be lit up to allow to alert a driver that there may be a pedestrian or other type of person in that walkway. So we had 3 alternates in that project. In no particular order, the first alternate was at 5th and Thompson, which was a parking lot. The second alternate, as you're going around the duck pond now, was to build a new head wall into the duck pond to try and capture some of the debris that comes in off of Thompson Street that flows into that, because all the water that comes off of Broadway and Thompson all flows down Thompson and runs into the tributary, then into the duck pond. And then if it goes over the duck pond limit, it'll go over the duck pond spillway and into the creek. And then the third option, or alternate, if you will, was the parking area near the log cabin. We took some suggestions from certain individuals regarding the direction of the trail and moved it away from the fence line and put it over into the actual park itself where the road was, which now created an opportunity to put a nice parking lot there. So the project has been well under budget. We've had one issue that took us outside of budget. It was about $14,000 that we paid to have some work done regarding drainage off of High Street. That's been completed. And then we had another component that we used the engineering money to cover regarding hydrology flow down High Street, regarding how much water and the flow of water and things like that. So we had quite a bit of money left over and had gotten prior approval from trustees to act on those alternates if there was funding available. So the 2 parking lots that you see are in fact those two major alternates. And so at some point maybe we can come back and do the third alternate, but that's probably not going to be anytime soon. And the parking lot, as you can see, the parking lot by the old log cabin has an ADA walkway with it. The parking lot at 5th and Thompson, there'll be a curb that will ultimately be built around so people can't pull down across the grass. You can pull into 5th into the parking lot, and then that'll have an ADA access that'll come out of the parking lot, go north, and then go down and connect into the trail.
It looks good.
Anybody else?
Just one other thing to add. The trail should be completed, barring no other weather delays, by August 15th.
Very good.
And there's a detailed report in your city manager report regarding the current progress of the trail itself.
Okay. If nobody else, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda by trustee Dow and a second by Mr. Roberson. Any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Noes? 5-0. Yes. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Roberson to adjourn and second by Mr. Orton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we're going to adjourn this meeting at 7:44. The City of Cushing meeting at 7:44. I would entertain a motion to enter executive session.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Orton to enter executive session, a second.
Aye.
Passes 5-0. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.